Hey guys, in this week's tip, we're going to cover something that's been asked about for quite a long time. There's been this little button within SMS Pro that says that we could prompt when we want to email a receipt to a customer. It hasn't worked for a long time, but since 3.4.1, I can't remember what version, but for sure the latest version of 3.4.1, that feature now works. So what we're going to run through is the scenario here and show you how to set this up, because it is pretty darn easy and it's a pretty nice feature to have. So first off, I went ahead and rang up a transaction here real quick, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what we can do. When we hit the subtotal button, we go to our general tender menu. Now I've added another button up here for email receipt. You can use a button on the tender page or on the main page or really wherever you want to put it that makes sense. And what it's going to do is call a little script that's going to pull up a little HTML page just like this one. Now in my particular instance, I say, do I want to print a receipt, print only, or email only? Those are the two choices that I want in my particular store. So I'm going to show you the first one. I'm going to go ahead and hit print only. Then I'm just going to go ahead and hit cash. And this is going to be exactly like what you've seen a gazillion times in these videos. It's going to print out the receipt just like normal. So let's set up the exact same transaction, go back to the tender page, hit email receipt. Now this time let's email only. You can see the window goes away. I hit cash. I don't get the receipt here, but look at that. Now you're not going to see that in the real world where the Exchange FTP shows up on the POS. You're going to see that only on the back end, depending on how you configure that. But on the POS, what is happening now is instead of printing the receipt at the POS printer, it is now sending it via email, much like you've seen in many of the home improvement stores, probably in your neck of the woods. And for those of you that want to see it, here's a copy of the email receipt that was just sent to me on that last transaction. You can see it's going to follow the exact same format as the standard email template that you have inside your store. All right, so a couple quick things I want to show you so I don't get yelled at and you don't get yelled at. In this particular scenario, I got the same exact transaction set up, but I haven't input a customer. Now, if I say go ahead and email, the system's going to give you an error that says, hey, you got to have a customer account with a valid email address on file in order to email. That only makes sense. Now, one other thing I want to point out, within the HTML window that pops up here when I hit the email receipt button, mine is a little bit different. I customized it slightly from the out-of-the-box version. The reason is I think the out-of-the-box version is a bit more confusing than it needs to be. It has 3 choices. I've eliminated one of those choices and only give 2, because in most scenarios, the customer is either going to want a printed receipt or an email receipt. So that's what I set up, just to make it simple. And I changed the wording a little bit just to make that easier for the cashier to both communicate and understand that on the fly. Then let's hop over into the back end and I'll show you how to set this up, because it is pretty darn simple. So I hopped over into Pro, went into the configuration settings, and I'm just in the config settings for the receipt printer. That's where we stick this option for the electronic receipt. It's right down here at the bottom. There's a little drop down to make it pretty simple. Yes, no, and prompt. Prompt is what we did with the HTML window. Yes is always email the receipt, assuming the customer has an email on file, and no is never email the receipt, even if a customer has on file. That's pretty easy, pretty simple to understand. This last piece here, the little radio button, pretty easy too. It's whether or not we batch all the emails to be sent at the end of the day or at the end of the transaction. Your choice. Well, that's it for this week's tip. Hopefully we've given you a couple ideas that you can deploy in your store yet this week. Until next time, have a great day.